Hello and welcome back to Campaign Connect. Thank you very much for being here. I hope you enjoyed the content so far. It's been a really busy day. My name's Oliver McAteer. I'm the Associate Editor for Campaign US. Here in the States, we are streaming live from my bedroom. I'm sitting on my bed in Jersey City. It doesn't get more intimate than that. Enjoy it. This is why you paid top dollar for your tickets. We have lots of exciting content for you coming up today. Right here, right now, we're talking all things production and creativity. The topic is the new world of creative production. It's interesting, this category is arguably undergoing one of the greatest transformations compared to any other marketing organ right now. With location filming coming to a grinding halt at the beginning of COVID, producers have been forced to really think outside the box as shoots, went virtual. It's completely torn up the playbook and given birth to a much more collaborative partnership, really, between creative and production departments in-house at agencies as they deal with cultural moment after cultural moment. It's no longer about COVID. It's about so many other moments that are popping up in modern day culture. Take your pick. There are plenty. So look, before I introduce my guests, who I'm really excited to have on today, I want to remind you as the audience, you play a really key role. Note the Q&A section in the bottom left-hand side of your screen. Fire us questions throughout and we'll try and get to as many as possible. We're going to reserve some time towards the end to pick and choose some of our favorite questions. So here we go, some introductions. A big warm welcome, please, to Flo. She is the head of creative at Shutterstock. We have Amy. Hey, how's it going? We have Amy. She is CCO, Chief Creative Officer at Code and Theory, which is a really cool digital-facing agency based out of New York and around the world. And we have John Doris. He's the head of integrated production at TBWA Shire Day, New York. Welcome. How are we doing? Thank you for coming on board.
Good.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us.
We've got a really good mix here, friends. We've got brand in-house, we've got the creative agency side, and we've got the production agency side too. So there's so many ways that we could start this conversation, but let's take it back. Let's zoom out and look at the landscape at large and set the scene. So for each of you, let's just talk about what's going on in your new world through your lens over the past couple of months. Amy, let's start with you.
Yeah. Okay, so talking about creativity right now is really interesting because our sandbox has gotten so much smaller. We don't have all of the resources available to us that we had before. We'll get into talking about production and shoots, but we're turning more and more to, we have less resources. So it's like imagination is all so much more important right now in how can we come up with new ideas with less resources, all at a distance. Distance has become less of an issue, but we're all remote. So how can we collaborate remotely? How can we be really innovative and bold with, doing this via video and, stock and illustration and shoot and assets that we have, or new ways to capture these things. And then Another thing that's super interesting is how we've really leveled the playing field for creative. We are all in the same sandbox and we're all in the same level. It's really democratized creative, and everyone has the same level of access to each other. It's all via video. It's all the same video. It's all computers and laptops. So where distance may have been an issue before in people in different offices, our global resources have all become one. There's this major integration of creatives that has happened. So it's the landscape has completely changed overnight. Our sandbox and our resources have gotten smaller, and there's a lot more pressure to be bold while also being sensitive, obviously, to the climate, and innovative, because every hour and every day is something different. So I feel like the pressure of creative and coming up with ideas is completely new. And sitting in a digital landscape at a digital agency, we're used to change. We're used to new innovations and new tools. So this isn't anything foreign to us. But doing it now has become harder and harder and really more interesting. And when we do it in a way that the creative is impactful, it's that much more rewarding, because it's a place where we all need to be imaginative right now.
Flo, give us the in-house brand perspective on this.
Well, I mean, for Shutterstock, we always have two sides of the business, right? So we have the contributor sides and the creatives and marketers, which is our ultimately end users. So on the contributor side, there has been an uptick in content being submitted, and contributors are signing up quite a bit because everybody is in this lockdown mode, and then they're digging through the existing creative and they want to upload it in our site and to create additional income for themselves, right? And that's we also have 1 million contributors from all over the world. So we started seeing a lot of like COVID-19 content before it even hit US, just because our contributor community has always been following the trends and they were creating it since it started in Asia. And then from our end, and also with creatives that work for other brands, with the lockdown, I think now we're learning to establish new habits on how they can continue to be creative and get things done anywhere by using stock content. And also, stock content allows us and everyone else to react really quickly to the ever-changing society these days, as you mentioned before, Oliver. And campaigns that would have worked last week might no longer be relevant again this week. So as creatives, we now have to be a lot more limble than usual and be flexible. And we just kind of have to build up a process that would allow us to make all these changes really, really quickly and react really fast to the society. And I would also add with the 15% increase of like social media platforms usage during the pandemic, I think now brands, including ourselves, are creating more short form content using stock materials to just kind of stay connected to their customers.
Great. You bring up some really good points that we're going to have a lot of fun unpacking in the next hour or so. John, what's going on from the production perspective with regards to agency life?
We're just continuing to try and navigate the ever-changing production landscape, really, and kind of understand where it's at and where it's heading, and trying to kind of continually find ways to get the ideas that the creatives are coming up with and the messages the clients want to get out there made, and figuring out kind of on a day-by-day basis where and how might be the best way to do that. I think there's been different phases. I feel like we're probably in the third phase right now, thankfully. Like the first phase being reactive, responding to what had happened from a message perspective, and just kind of the first phase was actually a lot of kind of stock content, user generated content, and then I think there was a second phase where we got a bit bolder and we started to, whether it be drop kits to talents' homes or directing with directors directing in their own homes, but trying to kind of come up with even more bold ideas and executions. And then I feel like now we're kind of, I don't want to speak too soon, but it feels like we might be coming out of the COVID messaging, and I think we're just trying to look at what the future is going to look like as we hopefully kind of, fingers crossed, slowly start to come out of COVID, and just trying to figure out what the production landscape is going to look like and what the future of production will look like as we move out of it.
Yeah, let's take a step back and rewind slightly. I mean, negative headline after negative headline. It's been dominating stories, especially in the past week or so, and we'll touch on that cultural moment later down the line. But if we look at the positives, I mean, I'm very lucky. We all are at Campaign to have a bird's eye view of the industry at large. One thing that I've absolutely loved seeing during lockdown is the behind the scenes shoot stories. I know, John, when we spoke, it seems like 2-3 years ago now, but actually it was only a couple of months ago when all this was kicking off, you actually joined forces with Biscuit Filmworks, a director there, to work on a spot for Snuggle fabric softener. So you partnered with this director, and it was unlike anything you'd seen before in terms of collaboration and the fast changing creative structure that went into it. You had this idea, it was concepted over one text message exchange, about 10 or so. And then he filmed it in his own laundry room, and he asked his family and kids to star in it, and not only act, but to operate the cameras too. and I think it was like 50 takes to get 15 seconds of commercial gold. I love this. I love these kinds of behind the scenes stories, and it's because it's collapsing the layers, and it's breeding faster creativity. So can you talk about that?
Yeah, no, that's a great example, and I think the whole production process pretty much happened over a text chain between myself, Aaron Stoller, CBH, and Tina Lamb, who's a producer at Shire as well. But yeah, we had an idea based around a client brief. CBH bounced it off of Aaron Stoller. They did a bit of back and forth, and then before you know it, Aaron was like, "Oh, I can do this in my house. I can do it with my wife and my kids." And it was one take. It was one take that was just summing up the lockdown situation at the time. So it was basically his wife in their laundry room on a Zoom call, and it was you started tight, and then you pulled out, and then you just started to slowly reveal the chaos around her that she was having to deal with, which was kind of, they have 4 kids, but 3 of them were in it. One was the camera operator, like you say, or focus puller, I should say. And yeah, you just, as you pulled out, one of the kids was shaving the other kid's head. One of the kids was just on his tablet and making a mess. And the payoff was, we all need some comfort right now. So it was just a really quick social commentary on the situation that everyone was going through. But it was, to your point, Ollie, it was refreshing for us to be able to bring that to the client and say, look, we have a way to make this. You just need to give us the go-ahead, and you need to give us the go-ahead fast and be willing to kind of be more hands-off than usual. Yeah, we shot a test. Aaron shot a test, I should say, sent it over to us. We made a few notes, shared it with the client. They loved it. And, the next day, I think Aaron was shooting it for real on a kind of slightly better camera than his iPhone. And that was it. He sent us the best take, and we edited it overnight. And I think we were on air, or we had shipped for air maybe a day or 2 later. So it was really cool, and everyone was excited to work on it because it was in the time where we wasn't sure what we could do. We were still all figuring it out, and that was a quick opportunity to kind of test ourselves and test our clients, and it was a fun one.
It's interesting that for the shoot, some of the things that we've done, it's interesting, and the topics have changed. Like some of the production stuff that we've done, there's been a lot of, the phases of when it first started. We were in this, everybody stay home and stay safe. So we did, with our agency, we kind of were like, this is ridiculous. We're all in this Zoom video. So we did a, a la Budweiser spoof, what's up kind of fun video, which, was a message about, it was interesting, John, you said your message about, comforting each other right now. And we did, that piece for, a message on staying home and staying safe. And then we moved into, it was Mental Health Awareness Month this past month. And then we all kind of went into this, okay, we're losing our minds. What can we do? What can we produce? What content can we produce that helps each other? And some of our animators came up with, these almost like visual ASMR videos where they were almost like visual fidget spinners, so just mind breaks where you can watch some fun interactivity and tools online for social content. So it's not just are we coming up with, and trying to shoot these behind the scenes in different ways, but the types of things that we do has also been shifting in these different periods and phases that we're going through.
Mm-hmm. That's actually a good segue for me to bring up some of our search results as well, based on our search data. That's definitely very interesting because when during the first couple of weeks of lockdown, we see a lot of searches for COVID-19, the virus itself. So like people are downloading a lot of infographic, vector arts of the virus itself, and people are trying to pull those for the articles and blog posts to really try to visualize this invisible enemy that we have. And then as we move on, like a week later, we see a spike on work from home images, empty spaces. Those are like empty cities, streets, and all those things become like a huge hit. And then after that, it went into more like cooking recipes. And as you mentioned, mental health images was a big one when it got into May, and then healthcare workers then started to become a big thing as well. Editorial content of healthcare worker and New York City going to work, and those have become like such a big reflection of what's going on with the society.
Yeah, Flo, whilst we're on you and this topic, can you just dive into a bit more detail about the growing role of original stock content in facilitating heightened creativity? And then Amy and John, I'd be quite keen to hear from you if there's been a sort of uptick in brands looking to sort of repurpose old content. I mean, I know there has, but what that means for stock content, like what Shutterstock provides.
Mm-hmm. So as I mentioned earlier, I think right now everybody is just trying to react really quickly without being able to like go out and shoot or actually do any sort of photo shoot. Then they come to Shutterstock's site to really download stuff quickly, to create stuff really, really fast. Especially sometimes it's our editorial content, sometimes it's just our regular stock content, but also we see an increase of briefs coming into our Shutterstock Custom business. And if you guys don't know what Shutterstock Custom is, it really is an offerings that we have that provides brands and businesses custom visual content created based on their briefs. So over the years, we have some big name clients such as like McDonald's, Mercedes-Benz, and Gatorade. But now these days, we definitely see an increased amount of briefs because they cannot do a lot of the things locally. So they are relying on us on this sort of service so that they can get exactly what they want at the locations that they want. And they are also looking for more of a look and feel of UGC content as well. And that's definitely a different sort of request than normal.
Yeah, and it's also been a boom of how can we use the assets at our fingertips, whether it's, stock content or content that exists from previous shoots or new illustrations that we're doing, photo manipulation, ways to make it bespoke and different, but also breaking out of the boring and the sea of same, a la like Ryan Reynolds' Mint Mobile spot where it was, a bunch of assets that exist and it looked like a desktop, and, you can kind of use different stock assets in a certain way, but how it was done was just, the spoof and the humor that was embedded in that is, just, it's a lot of fun. So I think it's not just being limited, to trying to put new spins on what exists, but the stock world definitely is a resource that has, humanity or imagery that you kind of can't grab right now. But then the challenge becomes, how do you make it unique? How do you make it ownable? How do you make it branded? And there's new ways that content and, assets are being layered and manipulated or animated to, or informed, or, scripting and the VOs and everything that goes along with it to add a sense of, tonality to it that is right for the brand has become more innovative as far as how far we can stretch those.
Yeah,
we've definitely we've definitely talked to some of our users that they pretty much said that like we would never really download a Shutterstock clip and just use it as is. As you mentioned, Amy, like they always manipulate it to make it into their own. And that's definitely something that I think a lot of brands are starting to realize, that they can create something quickly using stock content and just kind of manipulate it on their end and make it into their brand.
Yeah. I was just going to say, we kind of very early on just tried to kind of do some of the work to inspire the creatives just about and educate them about some of the, the stock opportunities that are out there, because, sometimes creatives think of stock in a negative way, and they see those flat kind of, old-fashioned images, and they just kind of are averse when you first mention the word. But obviously we kind of then shared, some of the sites like, Shutterstock and others where and just try to educate them about what in that phase where it's like, here's what is possible and here's what we can do and here's why you should embrace it. Whether that's kind of, UGC, of capturing the real moments that were going on at the time in a real genuine way, but then also kind of trying to show examples, as you guys say, about how you can kind of make it ownable and unique and not just fall into a world of kind of sameness, and finding interesting ways to do that. Like we just partnered with Blink Inc. in the UK, where we had some really iconic imagery, and we were originally just going to do it as is, and then we reached out to Blink Inc. and they came up with a way to kind of travel a camera into those images and make them 3D and show different depths and dimensions to that imagery that just made it feel really unique and interesting. So it was really cool to kind of take the initial idea and then kind of build upon it and make it, using those iconic images that we found, then make it kind of ownable and unique. And it turned out really good. So it was a really good exercise for all of us that everyone was really happy with.
So all of these ideas, they're all fantastic. None of them would be executed properly if it wasn't for the special relationship between creative and production. Obviously, the pandemic, among other things, has kind of forced the arm of both departments to work much closer together than they ever have. So let's get real about what that relationship has been like. I mean, Amy, are you having production people who now think they're sort of CCO status? Have they been stifling your creativity? And let's get real about the new relationship and what you're learning from one another.
Yeah, definitely pushing each other. It's really fantastic to see how far we can push each other in ways that maybe we didn't think were possible before. So coming up, challenging each other to think beyond, what before might have been normal. There is no normal right now. So how can we push each other to think beyond? And a lot of it has been, can we use, is there new augmented reality that we can use? We're building a lot of digital tools, a lot of new innovations for ourselves and for clients, whether that's custom and bespoke illustration tools that we hand to a brand so that on their end they can manipulate things, working with producers and figuring out how we can do some really interesting edits, even if just how can we cobble together recording, like, on whether it's one person recording themselves at home or we do a record via the video and computer to get some assets and produce it. And then what can we do with really interesting layouts and editing and manipulation to make that more interesting? Because, you're kind of just staring and locked in a camera in these ways. So how can we make that alive? So the pushing each other and challenging each other has been refreshing and exciting to see, because none of us really know where this is all going, and you can't even predict the next hour, the next day, the next week. So it takes all of us to hold hands to really make something special, and we're tapping into areas of our creativity and production that we haven't, those muscles haven't maybe been flexed for a while. So tools that were rare before are becoming more common now, especially the digital ones that we have, and collaborating together in, Figma documents and animating and having teams all kind of working real time together. The walls are down. I don't know that, we've all kind of become one department. John's hesitating on that. He's thinking. Have your creatives treated you well?
No, I was agreeing. That was nodding in agreement. I have, and I think it's been interesting because we've definitely had to be closer than ever with the creatives and the ideas that are being presented, given all the restrictions that were in place and still are in place. And obviously at a time where we couldn't be further apart as well. So it was an interesting challenge, but for us, it's kind of been about confidence and giving the creatives and, more importantly, the clients the confidence that we can make what we're presenting in a safe way. And that's meant kind of very detailed production notes on exactly what that approach would be, and that's been partnering with production vendors, etc., and doing a lot of that work up front just to give them the confidence to kind of go forward and be brave enough to go forward, because in times of uncertainty it is very easy to play it safe and do nothing. So I think we've just been working really, really hard as we can to find as many answers as we can and kind of give the clients the confidence during these times where kind of insurance isn't in place for anything COVID related. So, we definitely have to work harder to kind of mitigate those risks and show them what we're putting within that process to kind of assure them that we have the solutions and it will be a safe shoot to bring that creative to life. And then that, with the partners as well, like I say, we're working with production partners and editors really, really rigorously to kind of put those notes together and just give everyone confidence to keep the wheels moving.
It's interesting you say that, because I think we've been challenging our producers even more. We're coming up with new things and going to our producer friends and saying, okay, I have this crazy idea. How can we pull it off? And it almost, having you and the production teams help us figure it out. For example, one of our most recent projects, sound, has become really important. So how can we use the use of sound to bring in, impactful emotion into a spot? So we've been innovating together a lot more and really stretching, our imaginations and problem solving into how to pull it off together. And it is kind of taking all of us putting our heads together to figure out these new ways.
Flo, is there anything you would add to that from an in-house perspective?
Well, I think right now, because our production team, it's pretty much our in-house team in some way. And I think efficiency is definitely key due to a tighter budget right now and smaller teams. And we touched on that before. Speed to market is a very, very crucial point that we try to hit due to the ever-changing society. So content just has to be produced or updated really quickly. So that's something that we are definitely adjusting our team into. And then I also do realize that right now for creative teams and for brands, it's more important for us to get our messages out there quickly than producing something that is pixel perfect and polished as we used to, just because now we're learning that it is okay, it's acceptable to our audience to post a video captured simply by your phone rather than being shot in the studio in order to convey an effective message. And I think that's something that a lot of our followers and our customers are expecting from a lot of brands right now. And of course, as you mentioned, Amy and John, remote working and finding communication and collaboration tools and project management platforms that will work for everyone is quite important. And recently we started using this collaboration tool named Miro for our designers. And then we also started using InVision Freehand that we always had a license for. We just never really used it when we were all in the office. So in some way, it's just increasing collaboration that way. And I think, and on a human level, I would have to say, we're now meeting with vendors and who are sitting in the kitchen with the living room and pictures of their kids in the background. So in some way, I feel like right now we're connecting with them even more because the facade of them meeting us in the office in their suit or just work clothes is just now gone. So right now, just everything just becomes a little bit more casual, and we are definitely connecting with our external partners more, I think.
Let's just build on what you're saying about being reactive. It's really interesting. We'll change gears slightly with this topic because I think it's really important. We'll spend a bit of time sort of unpacking it. So everyone right now, brands, agencies, the whole ecosystem is built on a very reactive kind of brand messaging, very reactive strategy. And it's at odds with not long-term brand building, but long-term strategies and long-term messaging. And I know a lot of brands and agencies are sort of twiddling their thumbs right now with regards to, well, when do we pull the trigger and say this is a strategy that we should take indefinitely? Is there ever going to be a time when that comes, or is it just reacting after reacting after reacting? the floor's open for that one. Anyone can take that.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think, a lot of our business consulting capabilities have been brought forward with our brands and our clients, challenging us more to really consult and say, what is the right thing to do right now? So I think, building brands, what is the road and the path to a launch, or what can we do that is really, really quick that we can get up that is right and is sensitive to the moment right now? And then how is it building the brand strategically for the future? So, we can't just be turning something on in the moment and then not thinking of what it does for the brand next week and months from now and next year. So it's really been, consulting from how do we build these brands? How do we turn things on or off in an appropriate way that's right for the brand? And then also, we have a major opportunity as a creative industry to make an impact as well. I was talking with one of my colleagues today about how the Truth campaign and, all the work that has been done to, cut smoking in half, I think is the numbers now he was mentioning. That, is when you think about things like that, is there something that we can do to really help in, the world and our nation on what's going on? So it feels like we have not just an opportunity to set up our brands, but an opportunity to set up our culture and humanity and where we go. So there's so many things that get factored in, but a lot of it is very much future thinking and what's right in the moment and what leads to what messages are we saying for the future. So it's been a lot of brain power, a lot of creativity, but also a lot of strategic, smart brand building and figuring out how all those pieces may come together without a crystal ball.
Someone else jump in on that. Go on, Flo.
I think from our team's standpoint, we just kind of have to be always on top of everything that's happening around us right now, because we know that things are always changing. Things that we worked on this week may not be relevant next week anymore. So we just kind of have to mentally build that resilience and flexibility within our head that would allow us to just kind of bounce back onto and move on to the next big thing really quickly, and just kind of abandon what we have worked on maybe for a very long time really quickly. So I think these kind of things are quite new for an in-house team, and everyone is just kind of adapting to that sort of working system. And I think and Amy, you brought up the future voice of the brands too, and I feel like brands these days, they're not only expected to have like a voice based on the society, but like one that goes beyond sympathy, and it has to urge for action, and brand itself has to take the lead to make the change. And I think these kind of stuff are ever changing for both the agency side and the in-house side. We're constantly thinking about how we should represent the brand, what kind of social post do we have to put out today, without seemingly tone deaf. So definitely a lot of interesting things that are going on within the creative world.
And a media changing landscape, the media and how the media consumption is so different. How do we use maybe untapped media or platforms that maybe weren't thought about as main drivers? Now they're main drivers. So how can we play into those platforms and think differently about medium? Like LinkedIn is ever so popular. How do we start to do more of a publishing content aspect, which we've done a lot of at our agency? So, we're being tapped more for the expertise and content development that's more like publishing, because there's so much news and there's just content consumption that is so different right now. And more popular than maybe, they kind of did a flip of what was the most impactful almost immediately. So, I think that those platforms come into play a lot as well.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I guess we've never had, in some ways, there's never been more of a captive audience in some ways, with everyone being at home, working from home. And now it's just trying to understand what the right messaging is to get to them. I know we were anyway starting to kind of try and consciously move away from COVID-specific messaging. Obviously, still being very mindful of the cultural situation, but we were making a conscious effort to now try and move away from the, we understand, we're with you, we're here for you, and try and kind of take that into the next iteration and kind of start to think about the client's business as well, where it was appropriate. So I've definitely felt that shift of the messaging kind of starting to shift, but of course, the world being the world, there are other things going on as well now that we need to consider as well.
And
let's. Sorry, Flo, go on.
Go for it.
I was going to say, obviously with mass experimentation and thinking on our feet, it comes with mass mistake making. So I'd be quite interested in, we didn't talk about this before, so I appreciate it's a bit of a curveball, but that's what we do here. It'd be quite good to understand what kind of mistakes have been made, not just with you, but with other brands that you've seen when it comes to creativity and production that you're learning from.
I can jump in on that. I think it's been quite liberating. I think a good example is we did a shoot with, like many have done recently, where we sent a drop kit, very simple camera package to talent in his own home to film himself, and we all kind of connected through, it was remotely directed. Matt Asselton at Arts and Science directed him, but no one was on the ground, obviously, in the house with the guy. He was setting up the camera, push and record, doing the whole deal, and we're all sitting there. And of course, we all went into it kind of going, we'd done tests, so we knew it was, it was going to work. But with the client on the day and who knows what might happen, there definitely was an element of like, how is this going to play out? And also, it was such, we're filming on an iPhone. There's very, very basic lighting. We were waiting with bated breath to kind of see the end result once we had filmed it. Thankfully, it turned out really, really well. But and luckily, the client wanted it to feel authentic as well. They didn't want it to feel super high end, super polished. So, that gave us a bit of a pass. But I also remember kind of in a moment where I was kind of thinking, how do I feel about this? I was concerned it would look too amazing, because then what does that say about the way we've been doing it up until now? With
right, yeah,
100 crews and expensive equipment and whatnot. But and obviously didn't want it to look terrible either. And luckily for this particular idea, it kind of we managed to get the right balance between it feeling not super professional but authentic, and it looked good. But it definitely was. It was an interesting position to be in, and an experimental position to be in, where, but everyone kind of entered it knowing and being on board that we were kind of, to a degree, rolling the dice and trying something that none of us had really done before. And we all knew that going in, and it was just an interesting leap of faith in a way, for all involved, creatives, client, to just go, this is the way we're doing it, and we're all going to hold hands and make sure this is as good as it can be. But this is the way we have to do it right now. And it was it was something different. It was fun. It was liberating, and everyone really enjoyed the experience, including the client. Just, I think they even commented that it was refreshing for them to kind of just let go and not nitpick, and because we're working under very different circumstances with a guy pushing record and stop on his camera from his own home. So, we all had to enter it with a different mindset. But yeah, it was very freeing and liberating to be able to kind of potentially make mistakes and kind of learn from them along the way.
That's interesting on, even things like as simple as a team photo. We had for a press release for the agency, the year in creativity, we had this team photo request, and we said, well, how do we get, we have old ones, but they're not completely up to date. So it was we had to kind of take everyone's headshot and almost, it ended up looking kind of cool though. Everybody's head looked like a sticker, on a background, and, kind of had that quirkiness of looking like stickers and headshots on a page. So it's the requests can be something that is quite normal, like, hey, give us a team photo, but what do you do when you don't have everyone together to take that team photo? So it's definitely presenting itself in those challenging ways. But to your point, John, it's kind of cool to see, we're all like our dining tables are all of a sudden, food. We're stylizing food and product shots and lighting and camera angles and things are coming into play in different ways than, all of a sudden there's DPs are in unusual places.
Yeah. And we were using this guy's house, obviously. So, we were using the lamp that he had, the rug that he had is the rug we were using. There was minimal kind of art department things we could remove, but there wasn't the usual that we're all used to kind of going through. But again, I think people appreciate the times we're in, and there's an authenticity to it, like Zara, I think it was Zara, did their online collection where they just had the models shooting themselves from home, and it looked really cool and authentic, and you just felt that they were, we're all in the same moment together, and I think it worked really well, and I think everyone kind of, really appreciated it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's kind of.
I think there's a good. Sorry, Flo. You go on.
The situation, it really forces everyone to be more creative and more resourceful in a way, which I think it's definitely something that is not going to go away after this. I think if people are just going to realize that, hey, we never really thought about doing things this way, but now that with COVID, we are doing things this way, and then we realize that this is more effective, and that the result is pretty much, maybe not as good as what it was before, but if the result was something that can be churned out quickly and cheaper, I think a lot of brands and companies are gonna adapt these new ways of creating materials.
100. Yeah, it was definitely an opportunity to be experimental that maybe we wouldn't have had before this happened. And like you say, that I think in the long term can only be a good thing, because hopefully we can take some of the good that we learned from it and kind of use that moving forward.
I think there's also really a conversation to be had around, sort of humanity versus technology and machines. I'd be quite interested to hear all of your views on this, but let's go to Amy, because obviously, a few weeks ago I spoke to the head of another production agency, and he was talking about obviously the rise of CGI and other tech, including synthetic actors, which was kind of scary. It sounded like deep fake stuff where you record, one CEO or one mascot talking one message, and then technology can turn it into every single language in the world, and it looks really convincing. And this tech has been around for a long time. This tech has lived in the gaming community, and now we're just fishing it out to use here for advertising. So I guess my question to you is, how do we make sure that we maintain the humanity and the authenticity with the rise of tech like this?
Yeah, I mean, some of my favorite examples are the ones where we use tech to enhance humanity or manipulate or add, a certain flavor. For example, I love a lot of the TikTok booms that have happened and those dance challenges. And, I think it was accidental because of the timing, but it played really nicely. The Doritos Cool Ranch work, just played really nicely into what's happening right now with their dance challenge and the motion filters that they use to make it look like you're actually doing that hip hop challenge, even if you couldn't dance. So I think that, some of the best examples are the ones that enhance or, kind of make your own personality, your character, or the characters that you're building come to life, or manipulate. We're doing a lot of animations that, in custom hand animations because we don't want it to look cold. We really want it to look like it's been handcrafted. So a lot of that handcrafted elements have been, brought back in different ways. And we are building a lot of different tools and filters and using the digital tools that we have in new ways. And, augmented reality is becoming it's like a boom and resurgence for that. So I think that it's important that we don't lose the humanity, because that's kind of what we're all craving right now. We want that humanity and we want that closeness. So how can we infuse that into the work that we're doing? And I think it's easy to do things that are very mechanical and lose that humanity. So to bring it back in, to layer that in, to enhance humanity, to take something and manipulate it in a way that brings that emotion through has really been what we've been focusing on right now, because we know how important that is. So that's definitely a conscious thing of trying not to be too cold and mechanical, especially during this time, which just doesn't, it's easy to do, but it just is not what it's not what's relatable right now.
Yeah, I totally agree. And as you guys know, with Shutterstock, we rely quite a bit on our search data. But a lot of times, the fact really is like we can't really create our content purely based on the search data, because you can't really, in some way, like you can't really come up with creative concepts without the creative behind the scene. And I think that's what makes the in-house creative team so available for Shutterstock. It's because we know the brand, and then we have strategic thinking, and then it's there are certain elements about people being in this industry that cannot be easily replaceable by data or AI. We are the companies has definitely look into some sort of AI learnings on images and footage and all those stuff, to gauge performance of this clips versus this clips. So of course, there's all these things that you can be calculated from a technology standpoint, but then the technology is not going to know, it's not going to have the human eye, it's not going to have that creative mind to really think as a creative, this is just more attractive, this is going to perform better. So they're not going to have that sort of ability to as a creative designer or copywriter to gather that sort of result.
I think shifting gears slightly, and we do this topic an injustice by just talking about it for 5 minutes, but I think it's important to bring up, and again, I will just underscore that the conversation with diversity is in full flow on campaignlive.com. It's one of our founding pillars of Campaign US. We're massive believers in it. Anything good that comes out of any company is because of the talent, and right now, if we can get one big positive thing coming from the whole global situation, is that it's opened up new pockets of talent, because it doesn't matter where we're based anymore. So can we just touch on what that means for each of your companies and your creative and production processes? Have you already seen this change the way that you're working?
For us, it's, we've already used our resources and our different offices and different locations and to make one creative team. So it's been, the collaborative way of working is something that we're accustomed to, but I think that what this has really done has been, helped us to be able to refine our ways of working and tap resources in more areas. Like our London office, there's a time difference, but that's really the only limitation. For example, they're really part of, there's one team. So when you tap the different offices and the different resources, more so what has happened is, the way of working we're used to, but now all of a sudden it's resourcing based on skill set. So really who's the most talented and the most right in this one area that we're looking for. So it's not, it's less of who's available and who's local and more who's right. And I think that that's really enabled in a nice way, and has become increasingly important and surprising in good ways, that we've seen other things start to emerge. And because of that, and really having the best talent for each project and what's required, we've been able to refine the skills a bit more and really come together as one and be a bit, more collaborative. We're all now collaborating in tools like Figma, and where you can live see each other building. And so there's more in-person ways of working that are now, while we're in different locations, we're still able to bring that team and that collaboration together, which is something we were used to, but I think we've really refined our skills and maybe even in some areas become more productive because of the nature of the way we're working.
Yeah. No, I think the global footprint's been really, really huge. Like, I don't think I've ever spoken more to our kind of Canada office, our London office, just as we're all navigating, the shoot situation and what's opening up and what stage they're at, and which ultimately has been a really good thing, and it's just connected our production departments around the world in a way that we weren't as close as maybe we should have been. And then I think, to your point, the talent thing with the US probably still is, unfortunately, one of the most restricted places to shoot still. LA still isn't officially open. So we have been forced to look and widen our talent pool, if you like, to some of the places that are less restricted, like whether it's Sweden or Canada or Chile or whatever it might be. It's somewhere different every day. And if you want a director on the ground, the onus is on us to find a director that is based in one of those cities, or be happy with a US director directing remotely when you're not there. So it's definitely definitely made us as producers work harder to really dig into the global kind of talent pool, whether it's directors or DPs or animators or whatever it might be, depending on kind of where your team is based. So I think that's been a good thing. And then I think on the diversity front, I think that's something we always try and factor in as we're approaching projects. And we have an initiative called One Sandbox that is a portal for diverse creative companies and female-owned creative companies that at an Omnicom level we share, and we make sure we're constantly updating and looking at those creative vendors to make sure they're included on every brief possible. So we're always getting a very wide perspective on all of our creative ideas.
And from our end, our office is set up pretty much the same as yours, Amy. We have all these offices from different locations and different regions. And time difference used to be a big thing for us, just because everybody was trapped 9 to 5. And then we probably wouldn't be able to talk to our APAC colleagues until the morning off. But now everybody is stay at home, and everybody is just overall a lot more flexible on having jump on a quick 30 minutes call 9 p.m. at night, so then we can work more and collaborate more. And right now, I think everybody is just working closely together, and we have this mentality of yes, we're all in this together, and we need to get stuff out quickly. So let's just work on this together more. And again, we're more productive than ever because of that. And I also think that it also with this kind of with this climate that we're in, it opens up opportunity for us to find talents that don't look like us and don't think like us. So we believe that a strong creative and products are created by a diverse group of individuals, right? So this is especially important for Shutterstock as a global brand, because our goal really is to build a platform and products that will work with our global network of customers. So having that diverse perspective within the creative team is very important to us, and this is definitely giving us the opportunity to do so.
Great. This is all music to my ears. Thank you very much for sharing those. So as we come to a close, let's do a little kind of quick pace lightning round. We'll get out our crystal balls and we'll look into the future. What kind of newfound processes that you've discovered and unearthed in this time are going to be baked into your strategies going forward? Let's hear it from all angles. Flo, let's start with you in-house, then Amy for creative, and then for production, John.
Yeah. Well, so as I mentioned, I think speed and efficiency, that's something that we're definitely going to keep doing. And then, as I mentioned before, the remote tools of brainstorming and all those stuff, we are definitely going to keep using those more often. And I think sometimes when everybody's in the office, it definitely, we just take everybody for granted. And then right now, I think putting an effort in interacting with other teammates is also quite important. And I think that's something that some of these one-on-one skip level meetings that we set up now because of the pandemic will probably going to keep happening even when we do go back to the office.
And I think our, this remote way of working has really become, it's put an emphasis on things, our communication and being transparent and having clear goals set. So, we, our time, where do we prioritize our time, and what do we want to get out of this chat? And, when do we turn off and kind of have that moment to collaborate or do the creativity, or have that moment alone where you're not on video and you're being creative. So I think some of the things that we will need to focus on moving forward that we've learned that has been really valuable in this way of working is where to put the focus and the priority, and really embracing the time that you do have alone to be creative, and come up with without all of the distractions and the noise, really having that mind open up to be the most innovative and creative that it can be, and finding stimulation in surprising areas. So I think what we've learned is, the communication is really important right now, to set goals, to set objectives, to allow everybody to have their moment to express their value in the meeting and walk away from it with, active next steps. So I think that there's been a focus of where the priority should lie and where the time should be spent, that we've learned what is most important, that I think will definitely be brought forward in any of the new, whatever the future may bring in the ways of working, that has become really valuable and will continue to be.
Yeah. No, I agree with a lot of what you guys have said. Like, I think the collapse process has been really refreshing. Just getting straight to the point quicker and getting from idea to execution, removing some of those steps. I'm all for less meetings always. So I think I'd definitely like to kind of keep as much of that as we can. I think it's been really interesting. I think we've all proved that we can work remotely. So I think that's going to be really interesting as we move, as we go into the future, to see where that nets out. I think there'll be definitely more relaxed thinking around everyone being in the office and being able to collaborate remotely. And yeah, I think just some of the production process we've put in place of the, detailed notes, the real strong partnership with the idea, giving people confidence to work, and then also giving them the freedom to fail a little bit as well, to be experimental and be willing to take risks and try new things, and know that there's more than one way to do anything, and you're only going to find out if we kind of lean in and give it a try. So I think those are some of the positives to take from this as we move forward.
Yeah, definitely testing and trying and learning and adapting. The testing has been really big.
Important words to finish on. Well, look, we've run out of time, so I want to thank you so much. I can't thank you enough for joining. It's been really insightful and informative. Thank you for painting a picture of the creative and production landscape at large. It's been really interesting. To our audience, thank you for watching. You can now leave and go back into the Campaign Connect Hub, where there is tons more content to consume. But for us, that's it. Thank you very much, and thanks again to the panelists. Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you.